Hi, welcome to week 5. This is the last video I'll be making for the class, which is sad because I started to like making these a few weeks ago, but that's okay. A few things before we get started. I'm grading your stuff. Takes a long time. Your final, I know it has on Canvas that your final is like a quiz on there, but I don't know how I did that or what I did to do that. I don't know how to fix it. So instead of taking the final on Canvas, what you're going to have to do is write it up on a Word document and email it to me. So just because I don't really know how to fix it. I don't know what's wrong with Canvas, or it's probably something wrong with me where I can't figure it out. But just email me your final. The assignment sheet is on Canvas under Files. So, okay. I want to talk about 2 stories today, like usual. Ernest Hemingway's The Hills Like White Elephants and The Garden Party by Catherine Mansfield. So let's start with Hills Like White Elephants, which is really, really short, only 4 pages. Hemingway is a major American author. He's known as Papa Hemingway. Some of you may have read The Old Man and the Sea or The Sun Also Rises. He's a very big deal, and he practices what we saw a little bit of in Raymond Carver. He creates the movement of minimalism. So what minimalism is very much, he compared it to an iceberg. So in an iceberg, if my hands are the water, the line, and there's a glacier on top, you only see the top of the glacier. 90% of a glacier is underneath the water, right? Underneath what we see. So minimalist writing is the same way, where we get a lot of it, we get a good size of it, but most of it is under the surface. We have to really do some work to figure out what's going on. And Hemingway was a big proponent of trusting the readers. He always said and gave advice to people like F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote The Great Gatsby, Hemingway would say, trust your reader. They're smarter than you think they are. Like they can figure these things out. So without overtly stating what's happening in the story, we as readers should be able to figure out what's going on. And the center of the story is this very tenuous couple. They seem to have a lot of issues that are contingent upon this surgery, this elected surgery that is very mysterious, and we don't really know what's going on with it because Hemingway doesn't want to tell us. And in that way, the story does become a bit of a mystery, and we don't know what to do with it. But if we read in between the lines, we can figure out what's going on. I'm going to leave that up to you guys, but I will clue you in on a few things. So in the story, there are 2 kinds of environments. There's the lush green on what, so we're at a train station, which train stations are what we call liminal spaces. There are spaces in between spaces. So it takes you from one place to another, right? So there are thresholds, like a doorway. So at this liminal space of the train station, you've got on one side a lush green grove of trees where mountains grow high and there's a mountain range. It's very beautiful. On the other side of the tracks, however, is this dry country land. So we have lush with life on one side, and we've got barren and dry on the other. And here in between are the characters in the middle, right? So we've got these characters having to navigate what to do with this environment, this space. Okay? The other thing that we have to remember is that these are 2 foreigners working in the same, or in an unfamiliar space. So the first description that we get of the protagonists is the American and the girl. So we know that they're both not from Madrid or from Spain in general because the girl does not speak Spanish. The American we know is not from Spain by virtue of being called the American. He just speaks Spanish. And that's one of the things in Hemingway. He'll always take you to a different country because he himself moved to another country. I'm shifting a lot because I'm on the floor. The lighting was better over there. Or over here. So what is this surgery? That's a major part that major thing we have to consider here. What is this surgery that she is electing to get, maybe not getting? We don't really know what she wants to do with it. She herself doesn't really know. But she does, instead of talking about the surgery, he brings it up every time. Instead of her talking about it, what she brings up are these hills like white elephants. And when you say hills like white elephants, it's supposed to connote an idea for you in your head. We're supposed to think about a particular image that I'm not going to ruin for you. You should figure it out on your own. But also, it is bringing up Hemingway's very clever nature, where he says, "What's the elephant in the room?" Right? Like we have that expression, "What's the elephant in the room that no one is talking about?" And here is this surgery that is the elephant in the room. But what's the surgery for? You could figure it out. Let's see, what else do I have written in my notes? Environment, surgery, details. So when we were looking at the details, remember to read in between the lines. And this story is pretty good. I'm glad I put this at the end because we've learned to work up skills using different elements like character and narration and perspective. And we can use that to figure out what the symbol of the white elephant is. What is this reminding us of? What's happening with this surgery? What's happening with this woman and this man? So that's Hills Like White Elephants. Let's go on to Garden Party, which is in my top 4 favorite short stories of all time, just because I think it is so brilliantly crafted narratively, and the allusion, which we read in our Lenses book, means a reference to another thing, another piece, work of literature or movie or film or whatever, or TV show. So the Garden Party begins pretty normally, and it's very Downton Abbey-esque. I don't know if you guys watch that show, but it is very good. But it's the story begins with people who are very rich, and you're just like, okay, they're having a party. Why do they're fancy as shit. Like, we don't really care. But it's Laura's perspective that we get, and that's a particular one because she is the youngest of the children, of the Sheridan children, and she is the one that is trying to figure out what to do with her life, okay? We come to this part of our age, we come to our part of our lives where we're like, okay, I don't want to be like my parents, but inevitably we end up being partly like our parents, right? That's just a thing that happens, you grow into it. And that's what's happening to Laura. We see her at this moment where she is in charge of the party. She has the household responsibilities. What does it mean to be a good rich woman? Is to host parties that seem very pointless. And Laura, from the get-go, is like, okay, but what's the point of these class distinctions? I have to talk to these people who are working for me. Why do I have to act like I'm better than them? I'm going to eat this bread and butter in front of them. So there are these little proprietary rules that she has to contest throughout the story, and that really determine how she's going to behave for the rest of the time during the party and before it, and after it rather. So my question is, what is Laura like? She does struggle with a lot of the things that is expected of her. She struggles with kind of going away from it too, though, right? She can't help it. And the narrator really clues us in on that because of the way that he or she or it, remember, the author is not the narrator, how the narrator uses particular words. And when you read this, try to read it in a British accent and you'll get what I mean, because there's a certain tone, a certain mood that we're supposed to expect out of this, and the narrator does that by saying indeed or certainly. And I just imagine like a very posh person telling this story, and you're watching this and you're like, okay, why does this matter? But it's not until the person down the lane that dies when this story really starts to amp up, where we really get an idea of what Laura is trying to figure out in her life and what Mansfield is trying to tell us with her story. So, this man down the lane dies in a very tragic accident, a gruesome, horrific, kind of vulgar way, and he's really poor. And Laura fully expects herself to be like, okay, we're good people, we have to cancel the party. There's no way, like, they're our neighbors, we have to cancel. And everyone's like, but Laura, they're poor, who gives a shit about poor people? That's literally basically what Mrs. Sheridan says. And the way they distract Laura is by bringing her back to what she knows best, which is the high life, I should focus on dresses, don't be careful, don't care about class distinctions, because that's not what a woman's supposed to do. Remember, don't go beyond your boundaries. And so the great scene with Mrs. Sheridan where Laura's like, Mom, we got to cancel this party. Our neighbor just died in a horrific death. And Mrs. Sheridan's like, you got to chill out. Here's this pretty hat. Like, distract yourself with this. And Laura falls for it. She goes into her room wearing the hat and is like, I do look pretty good. So there is this vanity to Laura that we have to consider, and what happens after the garden party is what happens to her vanity, essentially. So she goes down to this. So you have to imagine what the setting is like. Here on top of a hill is their house, so they overlook all the poor people in the community, and they are this beacon of wealth, of I'm better than you, all of these things. And Laura, in a lot of sense, does behave that way. Mrs. Sheridan certainly does. So when we have this person die, we have to ask ourselves, too, okay, but what's the point of the garden party then? What does it symbolize if we've got this person dying at the bottom of the hill, right? So ask yourself that. Now, when she does go down to the poor person's house, Laura is, I'm trying to phrase this the right way. Not Laura, I guess the narrator is describing her in a particular way that uses allusion, and we have to key into that. So Catherine Mansfield is writing in the early 20th century, early 1900s, during a period called modernism. And this is the only non-American, non-contemporary story we're going to read that we read this semester because of the way allusion is working here. And we read in Lenses that allusion is a reference to another thing. And the allusion here in particular is to Greek mythology. The modernists loved Greek mythology, loved it. So the Greek myth here is not the typical one that we would get, but it is an important one. It is a major myth. Do we know? I mean, I'm asking like y'all are in front of me. You're not. So one of the myths that's very popular in contemporary literature, and even way back when Shakespeare talked about it, everybody talked about it, is the rape of Persephone. And when Persephone is the daughter of Zeus and Demeter. Zeus is the king of the gods, and Demeter is the goddess of the harvest. So what that means is she was the goddess of of growth and plenty and flowers and all these things. And Demeter's child with Zeus, her brother, is Persephone, this beautiful maiden who, when she took a step, flowers sprung up from the ground. There's this wonderful passage in Edith Hamilton's mythology about this, where Persephone embodied what spring was. And so here is this character in Laura who is gorgeous, and everyone is complimenting her. And at the very beginning of the story, something particular happens is thousands and thousands of roses seem to have just sprung up in the middle of the day, or in the middle of the night. They seem to have magically appeared, and it is this idyllic space that Laura is cultivating. She is the one in charge of it. But then this death happens, and she goes down into the underworld. So, in mythology, Persephone is picking flowers with her friends, other beautiful maidens, when the ground opens up and Hades, her uncle, comes and takes her down to the underworld, to the land of the dead. And when that happens, winter comes, because Demeter is so upset that her daughter's gone that she kills all the things on the earth, right? All living things die, all the plants die. We are living in a winter. So in the time that the winter's happening, Persephone's down in the underworld, and she is obviously upset. She got kidnapped by Hades, and she's stuck there. And he's like, "You're going to be my bride now." And she's like, "What the hell?" Like, literally, what the hell? Because they're in hell, get it? So one of the things that happens is Persephone's like, "I'm not going to eat or drink anything down here. Like, I don't want your food. I don't want your hospitality. You seem like this is extra. I don't need this right now. Like, I'm a goddess. I don't need to live. I don't need food to live." But she does get thirsty and hungry. What happens is Hades gives her a bowl of pomegranates, and she eats 3. So when she eats that seals her fate as in the underworld. She has to live there. There's no other way around it. Zeus can't do anything about it. Demeter can't do anything about it. And the myth is that's why we have seasons. For the majority of the year, we have springtime and fall and the harvest and summer and beautiful weather. But 3 months of the year, we have winter, which is why, 3 pomegranates, 3 months. So we have to contest that. That's what the myth is. We have to deal with it. in the story, we get the same kind of situation. Here's a woman who's beautiful and loves spring and is like a maiden, goes down the hill and has to encounter death. Though it is not actual death, I mean, it's not like Hades himself, it is death in the sense that this person died and she has to interact with it. But Mansfield does something really important. What she does is she inverts the entire myth of Persephone and Hades and says, let's make this a good thing. What happens if we make this a revelatory thing? So Laura goes down to the house, interacts with these women, these poor women, and she's very scared. She's in an unfamiliar place and doesn't know how to deal with it. But when she sees the body of the dead man, she has a revelation. There's an epiphany for her. She has this moment of clarity where she's like, this is what matters. Like, tells it to her brother Laurie that it was a marvelous situation. Like, it was marvelous and grand. She finds something beautiful in the death because it's something that she's been shielded from. She's never encountered it because she doesn't have to. She's rich and doesn't have to go and deal with the harsh reality of the world. But here is this opportunity for her to do it, and she takes it, and her life is completely changed in a matter of minutes. It takes like a page for it to happen in the story. So what Mansfield is telling us is, let's try to reinvent a lot of the mythologies that are happening and see what we can learn from them. The Garden Party is just so good. So good. Okay, let's see. I don't want to give more away than I need to. Okay, so I ran out of my notes. So that's good. We're out of time. I don't want to keep this last video too long. The week before was really long. Good work this semester. It's been really exciting to talk to you guys via computer. If you need anything, email me. I'm always available. And have a great rest of your summer before the semester starts. Bye.